All right. Good morning, everybody. Can I get a feedback on sound, please? Make sure sound is good. Good. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much. So we will have, if you're close and you want to come in, we have breakfast. Mike Wiles with Coast to Coast Lending brought some breakfast in for us. We will do mortgage Q&A here shortly, and he'll come up and he's going to talk about some of the products and things that he has. So I almost didn't want to tell you guys. I told Jimmy this morning and he was devastated, but everything's good. John Travolta, they thought that he had coronavirus. He checked himself into the hospital because he had chills and they were multiplying. No need to worry. He is staying alive. So everything is okay. It turns out it was just Saturday night fever. Okay. Dad joke day. Got it started off with. Yeah. So I just gotta change it up a little bit. So now that I'm in my 40s, I can throw the dad jokes around out there and. Oh, good. So anyway, all right. So we will be doing more mortgage Q&A with Mike Wiles here shortly. But I just want to start off and talk to you about your. Craig mentioned something about habits. One of the quotes today was about your habits, and the quality of your life is determined by the habits that you have. Your future is determined by the habits that you have on a daily basis. I think it goes one step further. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of the decisions that you make. If you make good decisions, you will get better results. That's it. You are one decision away from a completely different life. One decision away from a completely different life. How many people in this room can remember at some point in their life, one thing that they did, if they would have done differently, their life would be completely different? One moment in their life, if they would have done it differently, you would have had a completely different life. Raise your hand. Click on raise your hand. If you remember a moment in your life that your life would have been completely different. That just goes to show you that you are one decision away from a completely different life. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your decisions. It goes one step further. The quality of your decisions that you make is determined by the quality of the questions that you ask of other people and of yourself. Let me explain a little bit more of what I mean. If I want to know why I'm not losing weight, and I ask myself a question like, why can't I lose weight? What is my brain's answer going to be? Because you're fat. Because you ate those biscuits and gravy in the office this morning. Your brain looks for the least common denominator. Your brain does not want to be proved wrong. So when you ask yourself an open-ended question of why can't I lose weight, your brain's response is, let's find the reason why they can't lose weight. Because you're fat, because you're a slob, because you ate too much, because you ate at 10 o'clock, you woke up in the middle of the night and went and had a snack, because you were supposed to make dinner for your kids and you ended up eating half of it and ended up giving them packs of gummies and Chex Mix and stuff for dinner. So you have to start asking yourself better questions. If you want to know why you're not losing weight, change the question around. Ask yourself a more powerful question, one that's going to get your brain to search for a better answer, that's going to put you on track to make a better decision to get a better result. A question like that would be, how can I get back to my fighting weight so I feel energized and strong and can keep up with my kids and live a powerful life or live a happier life? It's a different question. I know it's harder to frame those out and to rephrase those, but it's a hell of a lot better question of why can't I lose weight? Now let's correlate it to business. Ask yourself, why don't I have any listings? Because you don't do what the hell you're supposed to do. You don't work, you don't call people, you don't show up, you don't do what they ask you to do, you just stayed home, you don't even log into the meetings, you don't even know what's going on in the market. Is it a good market right now? I don't know. Your brain's going to give you the answer that's right on the top of its head and give you the answer that proves you right. And if you're asking, why don't I have any business, you're assuming you don't have business. Your brain assumes you don't have business and finds the reason that you don't have business. What's a more powerful question? Anybody want to take a stab at a powerful question you could ask yourself to generate new opportunities and new business? What can I do today to help more people achieve their dream of home ownership or selling their home, to put more money in my account so I can provide a better life for my family? Is that a more powerful question than why don't I have any business? Do you think your brain will start thinking of the reason that you can earn more money, help more people, create the life of their dreams, and be better for your family? Your brain starts looking for those reasons. It's called your reticular activating system. You ask yourself a question, a more powerful question, you'll get a more powerful result. So the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your decisions. The quality of the decisions that you make is directly determined by the quality of the questions you ask yourself. We just have a habit of asking really shitty questions. That's just the habit that we typically have as people. Take some time today and ask yourself the questions that you normally ask yourself about why you don't have the business you want, why you're not living the life that you want, why you're not as happy as you should be. And let's find a way to reframe those questions so you start tricking your brain into finding that powerful answer that you need to get off your ass and do something different today. So make a different decision. You're one decision away from a completely different life. So make a different decision today. And those decisions that you make create actions. Those actions that you take create habits. Those habits that you have create your future in your life. So just start thinking in terms of a different manner and start asking yourself a better question. And real quick, Craig touched on masks, and then we're going to jump in with Mike. So masks, Hillsborough County mask mandate. Right, well, that's what we hear all the time. Hillsborough County mask mandate. There's a mask mandate. There's a mask mandate. Read the second sentence of Hillsborough County's mandate. There is a Hillsborough County mask mandate for all inside all public buildings when you cannot social distance. That is what the direct mandate says on their website. There is a Hillsborough County mask mandate for all public businesses that are open to the public, where the public comes and goes, where you must wear a mask inside at all times when you cannot social distance. Be respectful of everybody else's space. Please do not bring yourself right up in people's face. If you are going to wear the mask, Greg recommended if you're at your desk, you don't need your mask. But if you're going to be walking around the building, you may want to wear one. But if you're distant, keeping your distance 6 feet away from people, the Hillsborough County mandate does not require that. But again, be respectful of people's space. Be respectful of other people's decisions. And if you're someone who is very concerned about your health and getting sick, or you may want to make some different decisions. I can't tell you what to do. I can only tell you that there is not a requirement for you to come to this office. We have Zoom. We have the ability for you to engage. We love having every single one of you in here. So please be respectful of everybody else that's in the office. Follow the guidelines that have been put forth by the county to keep everybody's health and safety of paramount concern. Anybody have any questions on that? Please feel free to shoot me an email directly and let me know. We'll be happy to discuss and make sure everybody feels confident and comfortable. And with that, let's go ahead and jump in. You got the mic, Jimmy? Yes. So the first Tuesday of every month, we're doing a mortgage time with Mike Wiles and Coast to Coast Lending. Mike is our preferred lender for the Apollo Beach location, Apollo Beach office. We've had some great reviews and testimonials from him. Vicky Beggins did a refi with him, said he was absolutely amazing with communication, pushed everything through and got it done. She had somebody else working on it for months and could not get that done, and he took it over and closed it in like 30 days. Joy Brown also had a refinance done with him. Similar scenario, was having some issues getting everything together. Mike helped her out and got everything done within like 30 days or so. Everything was, all the feedback has been amazing, and the agents that have worked with him have had the same feedback. Mike wants to provide more value to you. So this is something I've been telling to you guys. Become the most valuable agent in your area. Mike is trying to be more valuable to you as a lender. So he's providing breakfast, providing information, making himself available to answer questions, provide you with every bit of value that he has so he can be the most valuable person in your sphere as a business partner. So Mike, come on up.
I think it's on.
Okay, now we get a feedback on sound. Go ahead and keep talking. We'll get some feedback just to make sure.
Hello.
You can just go ahead and go into it, and I'll make sure everybody.
Mike Wiles, we said a couple weeks ago. So I brought in food today. Please eat all of it. The ones who aren't here, you missed out. Biscuits, gravy. We'll try something different next time. But the good thing is, the reason why I did it is the company ended up being it is with Maple Street Biscuit Company. Seems like a chain. It is, but they're locally owned. The guy that owns it, I actually grew up with his wife I didn't even know until I called over there the other day and figured it out. So I grew up with a wife for like the first 20 years of my life. So, but that kind of referrals and ongoing stuff is why it's always good. I'll tell you, what's crazy is even today I was in last week. Guy came in from Frontier doing an installation. I ended up doing a refinance.
Mike,
Yeah, just by talking.
you got it's
Up like
indirect,
this?
so you got to hold it right. Yeah.
Up like this. Okay.
Good.
All right. Now I feel like I'm singing. Hi. It's karaoke day. Who's up next? So I mean, those are the things you look for. It ended up being a refinance just because the guy came in for an installation. You know, you'll get more business from that than anything else. You know, and just do the work on a regular basis. But I do have something for all of you. I know some of you have used it, some not. List reports. Every single realtor that I've given it to that has used it loves it. If you're doing listings, stuff like that.
I pulled it up so we can share, and we got the screen shared, and I'll show you what this is. So Mike brought it to my attention, so I can look into it and check it out. And I've used it on some of my properties. But you'll have this website with any of your listings, any of your recent sales. They'll show up here, and when you click on one of them, you have the ability to use all of these different marketing kits that are here. You have your very own website. So if you're looking for something that's branded directly to you to share onto Facebook, there's a button right here. There's flyers, there's the actual website here that you can share the link or share it directly to Facebook. You have a just sold website, an open house flyer, promotional flyers. There's virtual tours. There's all kinds of different info here that you can use, a property report. You can use this for marketing for new business in that neighborhood, marketing for buyers, marketing yourself on different websites. It's already done for you. You don't have to recreate anything, and it's very useful. And this is a free tool that he has that he offers to you guys as agents for any of your just listed, just sold. And there is some branding for the lending side as well, for different flyers that you have, because he's going to provide you free marketing materials, and he also has some connections on there too.
So I mean, it's free. I mean, I pay for it, but it's unlimited. So I already have people on it. So if you want to use it anytime, I have agents all the time. Do I owe you money? Like, it's like, because it is good. Like the websites, and I'll teach you a trick. Let's say you don't have listings. I don't have any listings yet. I don't want to do it. Here's a trick. I'm sure someone else here probably won't mind. Find one of the agents who does. Go ahead and sign up and put some of that on your social media. If you're looking for social media content and you put, hey, I have a great listing from my friend and on thing, and people like it, you're going to drive traffic. It's not necessarily fake it till you make it, but that honestly does work. I used to put these things up for other people on mine, and they would get traffic from that because your circle of friends gets bigger and bigger. I don't think anybody here will, if you help them sell one of their listings, is going to be mad at you. You know, I don't think that'll happen. So if there's anything I can do for you as far as business, I mean, that, for instance, that we talked about with Vicky, but I mean, I just did one the other day for Chase. I think I brought it up in this meeting about Chase not doing a loan. We're closing Friday. That was 2 weeks ago. Chase fell through, couldn't do the loan. I mean, we're 2 weeks closing. So I hear all that all the time. VA's not close. It's like 45, 60 days. We're closing everything 21, 30 days. So not really an issue. So if you have purchase, have refinance questions, even if it's not me, I help with another agent. It's not a deal for me. It's a deal for her. She's the listing agent. And but I just told her that what they're asking you for, don't do. It was where they're trying to use an old FHA appraisal that was way undervalued, and they had done a bunch of stuff. I said, you don't have to do that. So there's a lot of things about this side of the business that may help you. If you have a question, don't be afraid to ask. I'm here, not texting.
How do they get access to list reports?
Just email me. If they send me their email, I'll send them an invite.
Okay. What's the best email for you? Because I'm going to resend all this out, but go ahead and mention it.
We'll just get it Mike out. At MikeWilesTeam.com. I think you can have multiple connections. I don't think that's not something that you can always change that. It's in your settings. But and then there is my phone number is the 904-853-8704. That comes right to the system for us. So all that should populate back and forth with each other. I mean, anybody that uses this has been happy with it. And it's truly free, and it does look good, and it does post easily with all these other sites.
Yeah. And I'm gonna resend out today all of his info. I sent it out last week after, or the week before after the meeting, or last week. I'm gonna resend it out again. So if you need anything, please feel free to reach out to Mike. Now, Mike, we put together. Does anybody have any questions? So if you got a few minutes, we'll do like some Q&A with some different loan questions to help clarify some positions that people might be in as a listing agent or a buyer's agent, and some info from Mike might be able to help you out. If you have questions, please raise your hand. We'll get to them in the room, or put them into the chat so we can ask Mike now. But some of the basic questions that we've been getting and then I was dealing with are, like right now, it's difficult for buyers to get closing costs because of the competitiveness. Is it possible for some or most buyers or first-time buyers to get a credit from the lender or roll it into the loan in some way?
So on the credit, and I didn't really realize, it's about 2 years ago that started going away. We used to call Z pricing, the old term for it. It started going away because the amount of refis that were happening, so it started getting less and less. Like we used to be able to price, let's say it was 4 at the time, and we went to 4.5. You could get 2 points towards closing or whatever, depending on credit. They started taking that away because the refis were zapping it so quickly. So they do what they call, it's a level off pricing. So typically you can maybe get a point in there. There is a way to get probably a point, maybe a little bit more. If you hear a builder did it, the way the builders are doing it, it's kind of a share off. I do some builder loans. The builders typically, and they made me do it, where on an ongoing relationship, they pay 1.5. We build the pricing for 1.5, and the builder covers a portion of it as well. So that's how that is done. That's how that's done, but it's not as big. I would suggest this. I mean, you could maybe be able to get a point. We could do some pricing like that, especially government loans. Conventional is very difficult. So if they're a conventional buyer, there is not as much room as you would think. Government loans do have a little bit more leeway for that sort of thing, especially with better credit. But I would tell you this, I've done this a lot. Don't be afraid to go over sales price or what you think it might appraise for, because the appraiser does account for closing cost incentives. It is on the appraisal. So I tell that to people all the time. It is factored in on the appraisal. So if you go out to a home and the sales price is, you need to sell it for 200. Let's just use that for easy math. Going to 206 isn't necessarily a bad thing. If you say, hey, look, I got this offer, that offer, whatever, you can go over to try to get there. And I tell you, I don't really have that issue as much as you would think. As long as there's not some crazy. It's weird in other parts of the country I'm having an issue, but in Florida I'm not currently having that issue with lower appraisals. So so don't be afraid of that.
Yep.
That's going to vary a lot. So if you've got but I would say that if you have decent credit, let's say good credit, you're probably 2.25, maybe 2.3, 2.5, somewhere in that range.
Jim asked for those of you online, what's the kind of market rate for an FHA with no points?
Yeah, I mean, it's cheap. I mean, there's going to be like I said, there's always a bottom. So people are, we're going to do one. No, I don't see that ever happening, just because it's not enough money for the banks to do it. They can't sell the loan. They're trying to find to sell it. But FHA is because the FHA, they're making other money on like mortgage insurance and everything else in back end fees. So that's why FHA is cheaper than conventional. Last week's conventional rate was 3.7 across. 2.7, 2.8 across the entire country. FHA is a half a point higher, a half a point lower, because there is more money for the banks behind the scenes.
Mike, for some reason that mic's not picking it up very well. It just try and project a little bit more. It's more of it's directional, and then just try and project a little bit more when you talk.
All right, we'll try to do it.
Sorry, man.
Now we're sitting in the shower. All right, guys. So here's
it's
much better in the shower. So.
No, go straight in like shotgun, right, straight shotgun, on, okay. And then.
All right, here we go. Okay, I think I see it.
There you go.
That's all kinds of things in this room.
Now,
VA's the same.
VA,
yeah, FHA, VA are all real low. Now, you get 600 scores, you're probably in the higher end of the twos, but I mean, if you're low 600s, but if the high 700-800s are still 2, 3, 2, 5, 2 on the day. And I tell people, don't I hear people all the time when we talk about rates. Rates when you get two, three, four, $500,000 houses are bigger numbers. When they're at the 120s and the 150s, it's less of a number. So in those cases where you can try to get a little bit of incentive or something for people to help them better qualify, we might do an incentive for credit or something like that in certain scenarios.
Carolina?
Yeah, I can.
Well, let me repeat.
It's not that we make
the people online can't hear, so I just want to repeat real quick. Is it better for a lender to do FHA than a conventional loan? Does a lender better off doing an FHA loan conventional, maybe getting paid more?
As loan officers are not able to get paid differently for different types of loans. So that's not for us. But the banks are. Here's why. Conventionals don't have the same guarantees that FHA do. So that is why the banks consider them less risk. So a conventional loan, you're going to get, if you put 20% down, the bank's taking no mortgage insurance. So if you default on the loan, they're left with whatever's left. If you put 10, it's less, 5, it's less, and less. FHA, you're paying 1.75 in mortgage insurance on the loan, and they're paying a monthly EMI as well. So it is less risk. That way it's more profitable because it's less risk. So that's how that works. And then on conventional, because they're selling them in a lot of complicated funds and why all that's important and why it's done that way. But because the investor has zero risk, they're willing to pay more money for that loan from the bank. Because the government will step in and pay if you default. They won't pay the whole loan, they'll pay up to 25% of the loan. So that's why those loans are more valuable than a conventional loan.
You mentioned about appraisals and going over the price. So with an FHA VA appraisal, you talked about having an old FHA file, and the buyer's agent or the listing agent wasn't in their best interest to do that. So how long does the FHA or VA appraisal stick with a file?
So again, that's a question. When I first started, I thought it was going to be a forever 90, 120 days. It's not really that. Now, if you had one the other day and it's still showing, but you create a new case file. So when you're talking about the same buyer, the appraisal is good. I think 90 to 120 days, somewhere in that range. If it's the same borrower and if they don't close for some reason, something happened, something's wrong with the property, you'll have to get a new appraisal. That sticks with the file because it's attached to that appraisal, to that case number, to that borrower on that property. So that's how that's tied together. But in the case that we were talking about, different buyer, 90 days ago, and $50,000 to $100,000 worth of work different because the renter had trashed it. So that's two completely different scenarios where that doesn't play as a factor. So FHA, VA, you can get a new appraisal. It can be different. Your lender is not going to just do another one. And immediately you'd have to have a reason. Like they say, okay, I don't like this buyer. It came in low. And then you got another one in a week. And the appraisal came in higher. That gets suspicious because they can't see them. But as long as there's a reasonable reason why that was done, we can move past it. The only time you get appraisals thrown out that are stuck to a file is when there is some gross negligence. I've had that maybe once or twice.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. We don't see a lot of those issues where the appraisal can get either changed or thrown out because of, like Mike's saying, negligence. Very rarely will that ever happen. And even combating appraisals it doesn't happen a lot where they change them. It's just very difficult.
I saw a perfect illustration. This is in Tennessee right now. A good friend of mine, their appraisal came in low, and it came in a lot low, like 50, 30, 40, 50,000 low. But we were able to go back and show that it was a brand new build and they had missed square footage. Not necessarily gross negligence, it's just pure error.
Yeah.
And that's okay. We can do that. I have had some, if I were to say a percentage of appraisals that got raised, it's 2%, 3%, maybe.
Yeah.
It's not a lot because you have to have a lot of evidence that they messed up.
Yeah.
And then you have an appraiser that's willing to not dig their heels in.
Yeah. You have to
That's-
have an appraiser willing to admit they made a mistake
and
or
that's-
was incorrect with using some of the properties they used and should have used other ones, or didn't know enough about so you basically have to have an appraiser who's willing to admit some type of responsibility in the fault. And we don't get a lot of that. It's typically where they're, like Mike's saying, there's an error, a clear error, that square footage was wrong, something was incorrect, they missed something completely. That's when you have the best opportunity. Other than that, it's tough.
Can the buyer pay the difference?
Yeah, like if it comes in light with different types of loan, can the buyer always?
They can. FHA, VA have an automatic opt out for the buyer, but they do have the option, like an FHA and VA addendum that you get signed on your contracts, that allows them to opt out. So if it comes in low, they're automatically allowed to go. It doesn't mean they have to.
There would be instances where the buyer couldn't pay the difference, even if they had the funds, because FHA or VA may want a specific amount of reserves. Is that something?
It does. On lower credit borrowers, they may need 1, 2, 3 months reserves to qualify. If you get in the real bad ones, like the 580s, and that's not really that common as much. They're having to put 10% down. Those ones, yeah, they're going to need reserves. VA sometimes happens if they have rental properties, but typically the rental property people, that's not normally their issue.
What are some issues that you see that an appraiser may call marking the appraisal subject to for like FHA and VA? They look for safety. What are some of the major things?
And I hear this all the time, that that's a big issue. I'm scared to do it. I don't want FHA. It is very rare that it's ticky tack. Okay. It is not what people think from years and years ago. I've heard, it's going to have, they're so much more stringent. They're not really. Like the house needs to be livable. I had to argue with someone in Jacksonville about this, and the landlord was like, "Oh, this is FHA appraisal a year ago." I go, there is a hole in the roof. He's not being ticky-tack. There is a hole, an actual 6-inch hole.
You have a skylight that's not supposed to be there.
That's not them being mean. You couldn't do that any other loan either. Like, you just can't sell houses with holes in them. I don't know how that.
It's a new thing they're doing in 2020.
Yeah, it's 2021 now, so it's strict.
How long are you taking for your typical loan? Like a good clear file that doesn't have really any major issues. How long are you typically taking to close?
It's short. I mean, if you got ones that are clean, like Chase loan was pretty clean. It was we closed 2 weeks. But I mean, typically on a purchase, you're gonna have more to it than that. Because we were able to transfer an appraisal. That's really why that was so short. But no more than 30 days unless there's some issue. I mean, USDA is a little longer, it's 45 days. But every other loan, we're 21, 30 days. It's very short.
What are minimum credit scores right now for FHA, VA, conventional? Because I know they were fluctuating with the pandemic and all of that. What are you at now?
FHA, we're at 600, some 580s in certain scenarios if they got enough reserves. Usually what I do with those lower ones than that, if they have reserves, I just come out to fix it. Better for them and us. But 600, conventional still 640. But back to the question you asked earlier about why banks conventional versus FHA. If their score is less than a 700, they're not putting 20% down. I still steer people to FHA. Not steer, is not the right word, but their mortgage insurance is so much more expensive if your score is less. Because conventional will charge you a monthly mortgage insurance, and the fee for it is like 1.6 if your score is less. So you're paying 1.6 annually on the loan divided by 12 compared to FHA at 0.85 divided by 12. And the rate's going to be half a point or more. So the offset to going conventional is not worth it unless you have 20% of the scores are 700 to 1.
Okay. What are, like, when you're seeing loans that are being denied or needing to be extended, what are the typical reasons or things that we as agents should be looking out for or prepared for with buyers or issues? Like if a loan's getting denied or needs to be extended, what are those issues that are coming up?
Okay. Outside of property concerns, a slow appraisal. That is the only issue. Sometimes some areas got real backed up. It is kind of easing off a little bit, so it has gotten better. Around the holidays, it always slows down. But I would say that delays.
Just the ones that you see most often, anything that's an issue, like
credit, something happens. I've had buyers. I've had buyers decide to not pay their car payment while they're in the loan process, even though you have 45 emails telling them not to do that. Or You have credit problems will slow the loan down. Um, that's really it. But underwriting is, I always tell people, it's not really us. Like the underwriter only has what's that term for terms of service? It's not terms of service, but where we have a guaranteed response from our team at corporate is usually like a day or two. So when I send a file in 3 days, I'll have an answer. In 2 days, I'll have an answer and closing. So we might be at corporate in processing all total like 7 to 10 business days. Everything else has something to do with either appraisers, borrower, title, or property problems. So it's not really a long time at that particular place. And obviously, we're doing two things at the same time. Title's always working. We're always doing something. But the only delays typically are credit, asset related. You know, they spent their money. I've had that happen. I've had someone quit their job. I mean, but those are random. They're not, most common sense borrowers aren't doing that. So delays aren't really usually that issue.
Gotcha. Now, if you have, how often would you say an agent asks you to communicate to a listing agent about the borrower's file to try and make it stand out, like in a multiple offer scenario? And is that something you can do?
Yeah, I do it. I do. I get lots of random calls sometimes, you know, on Saturday or Sunday from a listing agent, and they're like, "Oh, I'm talking to, you know, I'm on Joe's file." I'm like, "Oh, Joe is." I went to where we talk about what's the address, a little more, but yes, I do talk to them. And my communication typically is going to be, yes, they're approved. You know, you can't get into detail, and you have no idea who's calling you, especially on the weekend. You don't know if they're whoever they are. It could be the angry ex. So I try to keep it limited to the scope of what they need to know at that time. But as files have problems and everybody's getting dragged into it, then you're going to have more communication. I've gone to the selling agent on where they're reasonable, and I've talked to them and said, look, here's exactly what's going on. Here is what has changed and why it works. That's what we need. I have done that, and I will do that if it's a scenario where an error happened. Let's all put it out there, and everybody's in agreement. Let's put this all out there. The only way that you're going to allow to buy this house is put it all out there at this point. And let's go through all the details and say, this is exactly what's wrong. Here's what we did to fix it. Here's how long that's going to take. So while they may not like all your answers, a lot of times I say, like, look, here is what happened. Here's why we made a change. It takes this long to now get an FHA appraisal ordered. Or what I always do is I try to convert loans. So if there's a problem, let's convert this one or that. It allows for this. Here's something new that came up. You know, it's just random. You know, USDA, all of a sudden they had undisclosed debt. We had to go to FHA, that kind of thing. But put it all out there, tell everybody what's happening, and then let's go from there.
Sure. That was basically all the questions online that I've run into or had from you guys. Anybody have anything else you wanted to ask? You were like renovation loans.
Here's my only thing about renovation loans. We can do them. Okay. Here is the biggest issue I have with renovation loans, and this is a personal one. You have to use a general contractor on a renovation loan. Okay. That's a requirement. A lot of the borrowers always want to do, oh, I got my buddy, he's this, he's that, or I want to do them. That won't work. And you can't do that. And you have to use a general contractor, and he has to be fully licensed and insured and all those things. And he has to be like a real general contractor.
And he has to be approved too, right?
Yeah, because when you start, well, I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, yeah.
I used to build houses doesn't work.
Right. They got to provide all the licensing, all the documents, all the license insurance. It has all that. Once that's done, here's what typically happens with that. You're allowed FHA 203, the basic one allows for $35,000 with 10% reserve. So it really allows for like $31,000. And if it needs more than like a roof or this, that, or the other, you're going to be at close to that number with a GC. You know, so because he's going to charge $5,000-$10,000, especially in today's competitive market. I had a GC doing some work for me, and I was like, that's ridiculous. But that is just where we're at. You may not need it. And a 203K has a higher score. And a 203K has
additional fees
and a higher interest rate. So what I tell people is if all it needs is XYZ, roof or less, don't do a 203K. Escrow for it. Okay, here's how you do that. You can have either the seller prior to closing or after closing take funds out of it and put it on there. So on like say on a new roof, my brother had one in his house. He was buying a house he was renting. So we had the sales price raised to cover the roof. We had them fully approved. And in his case, we did it prior to closing. But what we did was had a roofer that was willing to get paid at closing, either by the seller or by the buyer. Title company held the money, closed it out. He was able to then not need a general contractor to do that work. So I would suggest people do it that way, because there is a way around. Let's say I need new carpet, easy enough, escrow. I want new paint, escrow. Whatever else you come up with, pool pumps need to be fixed. I've had that.
Yep.
You know, all that stuff can be done. I would rather, if you're taking on a major project, you really need a construction loan or something like that, and a 203K is a lesser product when you can just escrow for it.
Well, real quick, we're in the last minute, so I don't mean to cut you off, but we probably got about 45 seconds left before this cuts off, and I have a habit of going right up until that last minute. So just so you know, online, this will cut down. We're going to keep talking here, and we are wrapping up shortly after it cuts off. So if you guys, have a great day. Come on into the office and have any questions. I'll be sending out Mike's email and contact information. Send him an email for access to list reports for some of that marketing material. He'll be able to provide you